in this 2021, we have a special guest, Charles Ouda, actor who is with us, who is originally from Kenya, but he lives in New York. The actor who graduated a few years ago from the Lee Strasberg Theatre and Film Institute here in New York, and currently is based in New York. And he will share with us his thoughts about the recent 9 months. Hello, Charles. Nice to see you, and thank you for accepting the invitation.
Thank you for having me, Jakub. Thanks.
Hello, Charles. So tell me, Charles, about your, maybe first, before we start, we'd like to know a little bit about your background. Tell me about your history because you studied, you started acting probably in Kenya, Africa. So how was the education system there? If you can briefly tell a little bit about that.
Well, all right, yeah. I was born and raised in Nairobi.
In Nairobi, oh, I see.
Started working from a very long time ago. I think my first, I started in commercials when I was a kid, and then just kind of kept working all the way through. Once I graduated high school, I jumped straight into the field, mainly because at the time I didn't really want to go to university, just, but also there wasn't really any actor training available to you in Nairobi or in Kenya at the time. So what ended up happening was I jumped straight into the business and just kind of went for it. And I started doing musicals at the National Theatre in Nairobi with a company that I don't think exists anymore. Then afterwards, a television producer saw me. And when he saw me, he was just like, yeah, I want to get this guy on my show. And I've been acting professionally ever since. I took some time off, and that's kind of what brought me to New York, because I wanted to expand on my craft and kind of learn how to work more efficiently and effectively. So
New York was your first city in the States, or did you go to a different place maybe?
No. Unlike, let me put it this way. I always wanted to come to New York.
To New York. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't really have any draws for LA is great, and working in film is fantastic. But honestly, I was I can actually say it now. I was a bit obsessed with being on Broadway. I wanted to be a New York theater actor, because it felt very much like the kind of energy that I wanted to be a part of. Yeah. So when I moved out here, I got the opportunity. I got very lucky because, well, I worked hard, but I also got very lucky because the Strasberg Institute offered me a international student scholarship.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you very much. And when I came out, it was literally just 2 years of nonstop, leaving it all out on the stage, doing everything that we possibly could just to gain that extra level of training. And it was great because I got to work with a bunch of very different kinds of artists, different kinds of teachers, different kinds of activities, and it was a very great process for me.
So which year did you come to the States in New York?
That would be 2014.
2014. 6 years
I
ago.
I came out earlier in the year because I was hosting a television show in Kenya, and we came out to train with NBC. So when we were out here, we were training with the Discovery Learning Alliance, and we were visiting NBC studios and getting to talk to the anchors and all of that stuff. And just even being in New York in April, when it's spring, it's not too hot, so it's not that summer heat, but it's just that perfect kind of weather. And walking around and meeting all these people. And then I got to go to Strasberg, and the minute I stood outside those doors, I was like, yeah, there was nowhere else for me. There was literally nowhere else. It had to be New York.
New York, I see. No, but also you mentioned this show in Kenya. So tell me, the show that you had before, So which language was it? So tell us about that, because about this show.
Well, I've worked on a bunch of different shows in Kenya. Primarily, the languages that I've worked in is the language that I have worked in the most is English.
English also in Kenya also. Okay.
What most people don't realize is that Kenya has two national languages. So we have English and Kiswahili. Those are the two national languages. However, there are up to 43 different ethnic groups spread out across Kenya. Each of these ethnic groups has their own language, their own culture, and some of them may kind of be similar, but each group is completely like separate. Now, that being said, there are different actors working at different levels in different languages across the country. So I have a friend, actually, there's the piece that I was rehearsing before we did this, we kind of get to work, because we're working virtually, obviously, but we kind of get to work in the three different languages that the writer wanted us to use, which is such a refreshing ability to be able to work in different languages, but then also be able to work at different sort of, I can only describe it as like code switching, where you can sort of, I can work in America, I can work in Kenya, I can work in South Africa, I can work in Poland, I can work in England, and it's all very kind of different. And it's a very enjoyable kind of process. And I also very much love to watch how the differences in language change certain cultural things and thus change the makeup of the play or the piece. So it's
thank you. But also, Charles, well, going back to the last thing about the education. So when you go to school, when you went to school did you go to school in Kenya or high school elementary? Or?
Oh, yes.
So did you have two languages? Did you have two languages there?
Yes.
Two. Okay, that's also interesting. Very interesting.
So like even like I'll give you the example. Even when we were in high school, so I went to a Catholic high school. St. Mary's School, Nairobi. Shout out to St. Mary's. St. Mary's School, Nairobi. And, a lot of the lessons that I had were in English. However, St. Mary's also offered, like in my early years of high school, I learned French. In my later years of high school, one of my fellow students took a private exam and did it in German. And of course we do always have Kiswahili lessons because it's the national language. So, everybody should know it. So yeah, I always tell people that even when we were working, even when we were out there acting, you always have to be able to work in a different language, or just because it just sometimes it changes the color of the work that you're putting out there.
Yes.
Which I think is important. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So now the other question is, let's go to the current times. Okay, you graduated, you've been in New York for a few years, and now the pandemic came in March. So how did it change your life? How are you working now? So tell me about the recent months, how you are dealing with that.
That's a rough one. It's a good question, but sorry.
It's a rough one. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, if we're being realistic, my entire career basically shifted. Because here's the thing. One of the draws for me for New York was the live theater element and working in live theater. And then those first couple of years when I was here, it was so enjoyable, either to go watch plays or after we graduated and I was out in the industry working, to get cast in something and you're on a stage and you're in rehearsal and you get to you can touch and you can hug and you can sort of in rehearsals, you're in rehearsals with the family of actors that you're working with. And then at the same time, when the show goes on to stage, the audience is right there. You can see them. The difference now is in March when the lockdown happened, when that first lockdown happened. And I think for me, one of the saddest things I noticed was them saying, okay, so we're going to have to shut down Broadway and we'll probably be back in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of weeks later, it was like, well, we'll probably be back in the fall.
In the fall, yes.
And then it was like, no, we'll be back in the winter.
delay.
And the further and further back they
Further.
pushed it, the further and further back I realized this is not just, I mean, it's terrible for Broadway, but for the off-Broadway companies and the off-Broadway companies, which is where a lot of younger actors get their experience and get their work, and younger playwrights and younger directors get to cut their teeth and hone their craft. And which, in my opinion, is where you see a lot of high-level, like introspective work. I suddenly became very worried about my career because now those spaces, I became worried about those spaces because if the big boys might not survive, what happens to the little guys? And it started to, I got very stressed about it. I basically just ended up, sitting in my apartment and just trying to write, maybe make music or like, but you have that block.
You're also the screen writer, right? Aren't you?
Yes,
you
yes,
are.
I am a screenwriter.
Okay, so
yes.
Then also, I'm just thinking though about situation. Are you considering to writing maybe some play regarding this time that we are now, a lockdown, something? For the festival, I composed a piece for the victims of the coronavirus. We had a concert 15th of November at the church, and it was just based for the those who passed away. I wrote a piece for voice and organs, but I was just referring to the current times. How about you and your screenwriting?
Honestly, I don't know. I'll tell you this. Right now, I'm not sure that I want to because I personally am not ready to write about how this moment has affected me or how this moment would have affected the world. I'm not ready for that kind of expression. However, I will say I have worked on some rather excellent pieces as well during this time that were about the things we are facing today. Now, that, of course, refers to not just the whole situation with the lockdowns and the quarantine and having to face what can only be described as a once in a lifetime crisis that we will be basically recovering from for the next possibly 100, 200, 300 years. Whether, like it's a once in a generational type thing. And they'll be talking about this for the next 100 years. Hopefully by then we will have found a pill that cures everything. But also talking about the racial tension that's been going on during this lockdown, and having to deal with the socio-economic issues that people of color, women, people in the LGBTQI community face on a day-to-day basis, whether it's structural or institutional racism or any form of discrimination. And one of the things that I do really appreciate that came out of last year, came out of this whole situation with the quarantine and the pandemic, was that people started taking a very serious look, not just within themselves, but also at the society that they lived in previously, and asking those hard questions, especially of their neighbors and of their friends, and of the people who may or may not be in their social circle as either one of those two things. We had to look at each other and recognize that, oh, okay, this person is going through something. How can I meet them at their point of need? Do I have the spiritual or psychological or emotional quotient to give them what they need so that they can achieve what they have to achieve? This quarantine jump-started a lot of things in me. It really did jumpstart the writer, though. And I think for me, that's something that I'm probably going to be exploring for a while.
I see. But you know, Charles, you mentioned that you have this rehearsal, so something is going on virtually. And
Yes.
what is going on? What you are working on, and which project are you doing now in Kenya? That's also interesting.
So currently at the moment, there's a small, well, not small, it's actually pretty huge. There was a book that was written in the early, I think it's the late 80s, yes, mid to late 80s, which is about a story. It's a story about a criminal in Kenya, and the book is called My Life in Crime. The author is John Kiriamiti. Now, what happened is a couple of theater practitioners came together and decided that how about we take that book and we write a few scenes and monologues based off of that book. And they don't have to be time specific. You know, you can set it in the future, you can set it in the past, you can set it in the present, it's up to you. And just kind of turn it into something. And I'm very honored because I get to work with a bunch of really super talented directors, writers, and actors who are based across the world. We have the person who's coordinating, the two people who are at the forefront of coordinating this are based in LA and Italy, and they're hands on the ground people. One of them is based in the UK. One of them is based in Kenya. There's a lot of actors coming in on this from Kenya, some new, some old. We have, like, for my specific scene, my directors is in Harare right now. And, you know, it's like where I do, again, things that silver linings through the clouds. I really appreciate the fact that because we're forced to work on mediums like this, on Zoom, Instagram Live, which is where the Balcony Arts, if you're on Instagram and you're watching this, follow the Balcony Arts Live. You can check out all of the play stuff, the plays that we've done for the last series and the plays that they've done in their previous series, where they're basically taking theater onto Instagram Live. And it's a wonderful initiative. It's completely different. It's something that I've never seen done before. Mm-hmm. And I'm really enjoying the whole process of creating with people around the world and kind of putting it together onto this short medium that people can enjoy and just kind of watch. You know?
Is there any video, something we can maybe watch after the interview? I want to ask you about music, you know. Also, I'm the artist director of the Chopin and Friends Festival. You as an actor, and probably and also singer, so probably music is also important for me. Have you ever used in your plays like music of classical music or maybe just Chopin? And what is the role of music also for you? What do you think was the role of music in theater or in movie? This question, okay?
Let's see. I have used classical music before, but not really.
Not Chopin.
Not really. In my theater work, because when music and theater combine for me, that generally means musical theater, which means it's pre-written, and you know we don't.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
But like in film, especially, I'm currently in the process of working on a feature film, and that's as a writer. And one of the things that I'm really discovering is, or sort of not. One of the things I'm rediscovering is how big of a role music plays in your life as you write, because there's certain moments where you'll be writing something and the tension is heightened just by the right piece of music. So I think it's very important to kind of work off of that. My classical background, I haven't touched a classical instrument since I was in what Americans would call the 6th or 7th grade, I think.
6th or 7th grade, but in Kenya, right? In Kenya,
yes. I used to play the flute.
The flute in Kenya, okay.
Yeah.
But not the traditional flute, just the Western European flute, right? Or the
yes, like the normal flute you would find in an orchestra.
Flute C, okay. Yes. Concert flute.
And I after when I got into high school, I started playing the guitar, and I pretty much write off all the music that I write
on the guitar,
whether I'm messing around on on GarageBand or Logic Pro or whatever. It's generally guitar or piano based, and it's just, you know, like kind of pop music, and like sometimes I write like musical theater level songs.
Tonight, the city's alive. Tonight, we're doing this right. Everything's moving at light speed, we're dreaming by sight. I'm feeling that feeling so real and filtered out. I'm walking in the moonlight. 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 The music will set us free, and bright lights deserve company. I'll give it my all, I'll be there when you call on me. If they shine, then we shine. If they shine, then we shine. If they shine, then we shine eternally. I'm walking in the moonlight. 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 Light up the darkness. I'm walking in the moonlight. Light up the darkness.
That's generally this. Thank you very Charles for this conversation, for sharing your thoughts. We wish you from our organization, Dance and Arts Innovation, a lot of good energy, a lot of maybe inspiration writing, maybe someday also the new theater play,
Yes.
the different topics of our current times, and also about the future. Also, all the best with your project in Kenya. That will go very well, and with very good success. And let's hope that this pandemic will finish very, very soon. There is a hope. We have vaccine, so probably soon it might be over. We hope for
Indeed.
that. Okay.
Indeed.
So Charles, thank you very much for everything that you share with us, and all the best for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Bye bye.
Have a good one.
Come on, kid. Just, why won't you? Hey, you're supposed to loosen the nuts before you hoist the car.
He is
Mutant. Well, at least that's what we call her on the farm. If I had a file with the name of all your lovers, then I could create an encyclopedia.
It's not my fault the first lady doesn't know how to sing happy birthday.
Wasn't a normal birthday, Norma.
What was the problem?
Well, besides the fact that I work in the newspaper, and she has never even seen one.
Stop it.
All right. Her favorite movie of all time. Of all time. Are you ready for this? Ready, Norma?
So, I'm sure that's a lot of people's favorite movie.
Yeah. I'm sure it is too, and I am not dating those people. I mean, of all time. That includes every movie that's ever been made.
I want to be there for you now. I mean, I want us to be friends. You know, like we used to be. If that's all right with you.
Do you remember running around and Tommy would chase us everywhere, shouting, "Let me play"? What was that song that we always used to sing?
Look, Vinny, that's just how life is.
And that's a piece of me, man. It's a piece of me out there. She's living, she's breathing.